So I am Jonathan Davis. I am a professor in secondary education at TCNJ, and my research is focused mostly on culturally responsive pedagogy and how to sort of rethink what it means to create positive classroom learning environments, how you're able to create those environments by really creating positive spaces where you get to know your students, the community, and then shape your pedagogy and strategies to really support the needs of your classroom. Yeah. So the methods that we're using, the mixed methods is essentially when you do partly quantitative work. Usually that is derived from different surveys that you give to many people, and then you take a look at the results and the numbers of those surveys, and then do different analysis of it. And then the other piece of mixed is a form of qualitative where you're getting more of the stories. So the quantitative is more the what, the qualitative is more the why and the how. And so the qualitative is generally derived from more sort of open-ended survey questions, interviews, observations. And so for the current work I'm doing for the book project on the building your teaching toolbox, the work that we've done is, and again, it's because it's not for academics, it hasn't been quite as formal. And so the more formal methods I did for my what was my dissertation on classroom management. So for the toolbox one, I what we did was we developed an initial survey where we sent it out to teachers across the country and across the world. Really simple, basic information about demographics, because we wanted to know who the people were, where they were from. And then just some open-ended questions about different strategies and different categories from creating classroom environment to planning to instruction to professional development. And so after getting in all the surveys, which was over 100 different people wrote, then what we did was we compiled all of the the qualitative information and categorized it and sorted it, to sort of try and find some themes. And it was much more informal. We weren't using any of the qualitative software that you might talk about in your class, like in Vivo or Atlas TI. It was really just like, let's look at themes that we see, kind of annotate it in Google Docs, so we can both look at it and then sort of see what comes from it. And so it was, for us, we wanted a sort of more lax approach to it to sort of see what came of it and what really stood out. And then from there, once we found these categories and identified different strategies we really want to focus on, we reached out to the people who filled out the surveys in order to do follow-up interviews. So then we sent an additional form where they really fleshed out and wrote narratives about their work and gave us a little bit more context for their schools in terms of the different assets and needs of their school. And then we did a 30-minute to 1 hour interview with each of them, and took notes on it. We did not transcribe them, which I've done for previous work, because it's a whole other beast. And it depends on what your audience is and sort of the details you need. For us, we had a lot of the quotes from what they wrote, and so we tried to, as we took notes, take good quotes down, but really it was more just generating the gist of what they were saying. And so I think when you approach research and methods, you just need to think, who's your audience, where are you trying to publish it and write it? And so that's going to really determine, I think, a lot of the strategies you take in terms of your approach to the methods. Use snowball sampling, to some degree. So for the US, we reached out, we used our own networks first, and told them to spread it to their friends and colleagues. We also reached out to different educational organizations. So like National Council for Social Studies. And so we went to each kind of content area and reached out to their national and state organizations and got some results from that. And then for the international, it really was from our program. Having taught in Thailand and Vietnam, and then Maureen having taught in Spain, we reached out to the different teachers that, like you all, that we have worked with, and ask them to fill it out and share it with their networks as well. So that's sort of the approach that we went. And in the end, we were worried about getting a representative sample in terms of sort of urban, suburban, rural, because that's the kind of the approach we wanted for the book, to make sure that we really were getting insight and great ideas from teachers in all these different areas. And it kind of, we got lucky, I think, in some sense, that organically it worked for our first book, where it really truly is very representative. Yeah. So, I think for me, I got into academia not because I wanted to be an academic, because I love working with new teachers. And so the hardest decision I ever made was leaving the high school classroom. And so for me, I do enjoy research and writing, but it was never about doing it for other academics ever. And so you have to play the game. And so the first book that I published was much more for teacher educators, for higher ed. But I sort of made a deal with myself that, especially once I got that done and published in some well-respected journals, that it wouldn't be about that anymore for me. That everything that I produce is going to be grounded and providing real meaningful work that teachers can then take with them and apply to their practice. So I'm making I'm making those choices very explicitly at this point in my career, where I'm working on this book project. I'm going to be a part of, hopefully, a new NSF grant that we're trying to get for this year, where we're going to be collaborating with local STEM teachers and developing protocols to better prepare STEM educators. So it's also a reason why I chose TCNJ. I wanted to be at a school that cared more about teaching and education and the students in the community than just pushing out publication after publication. And for us, for instance, one layer we want to add to our book is videos, and we want to have that accompanying each of the strategies. But there are barriers to creating videos, one in terms of getting permission in districts, and then being able um, to have the publisher include them as a part of the book. And we want to create a website. And so I think that whatever avenue you go through, you're never going to be able to get everything you want. And so I think for us right now, the biggest challenge is, how do we truly reach and produce the products that we want, and navigate some of the red tape that exists to be able to get there. And so that's what we're. My biggest advice is that you want to be sort of, you want to be true to who you are as an educator, and through that, sort of thinking about how your methods match up with that. So for instance, whenever I want to do surveys with educators and teachers, I want to do pre and post surveys with whatever I'm trying to work on with them, so I can see sort of where they start and where they end up. But then I also want to be able to talk to them about that evolution. And so that's where I've ended up doing a lot of mixed methods. Is you've got the survey, the pre-post, but then you also have this evolution of what you're doing that you can get from the qualitative. So my advice is to really think about why you're doing what you're doing, and then find ways to have your methods match up with what you really want to get out of it.